For any major project to get off the ground, those working to make it happen must always overcome several obstacles. And when it comes to the Sealion Oil and Gas Plan, there are a number of things that will need to be taken into consideration if it does get off the ground. These are what the series of reports published last week by Hatch look to address, with them assessing different social, economic and environmental factors and indicating how Navitas and the Falkland Islands Government will ensure they can minimise their impact or eliminate it altogether. They have given each a grade, somewhere between very low and high. Across the board, most things were marked as moderate or very moderate, suggesting that mitigations to control them have been put forward. In other words, they have found ways to ensure that each of the potential problem areas can be addressed. But that has not been enough to satisfy the concerns of those people currently living here. At last week's public meeting, several areas were discussed among the community, members of the Legislative Assembly, government officers and a Navitas representative. One thing that was raised was the need for accommodation for Navitas staff and the risk that increased demand could lead to rents rising, but there are ideas as to how this can be avoided.
The 2021 housing strategy looked at quite a range of options, and those are essentially divided into two broad areas. Ones that are designed to boost construction, so that might be making more land available for private developers or putting incentives in for private developers to build houses for rent. Or they might address some of the issues that might come out of increased demand. So for example, we might look at legislated contract terms, so looking at minimum notice periods or maximum increases in rent within a given period.
Another problem that could arise is jobs, with the arrival of the oil rig potentially leading to some current roles around the Falklands becoming vacant as people move to work in the newer industry. But the government once again have ideas as to how they can prevent this from becoming too much of a concern.
One of the main things we can do there is kind of try and ensure that the process for recruitment is as flexible as it can be. There's already quite a lot of work being done into that under the workforce development strategy. We're soon to launch a website that essentially tries to promote the Falklands as a place to live and work in, and essentially try to get eyes on job adverts here in the Falklands.
But the social and economic issues are only half the story. There's also the environmental side of things that needs to be considered. One thing that has led to some concern is the need to use helicopters to move staff from the islands out to the oil rig. The government, though, are keen to reassure them that work will be carried out with as much consideration for the public, livestock and agriculture as possible.
The busiest time is when the rig or what would be the FPSO are doing a full crew change. On those days, there would be more activity, but on an average day, it would just be maybe one helicopter go out and one helicopter come back. There are already very good no-fly zones over sensitive wildlife areas, for example. So any that are around that area will be there, and that will apply to a helicopter no different to an islander or any other plane.
And there is also the risk of an oil spill occurring, which cannot be completely factored out of any decision to go ahead with the Sea Lion project. But the government say Navitas have shown they can deal with one if it did occur.
One of the things that they have done extensively over the years is to model what happens with this type of oil in our ocean, and to see how that would move, how it would spread and so on. And there is a very, very, very low risk in terms of that type of oil. It doesn't pour until it's nearly 40 degrees centigrade. It forms waxy balls and floats. So ergo will be easier to clean up. We're pretty sure from the modelling that's been done, and certainly I've seen it previously, that the oil wouldn't come anywhere near Falkland shores. No guarantees, but that's certainly the way it looks from the modelling that's been done.
There will be a need for the government to ensure Navitas deliver on the measures they have set out, and they have said there is legislation in place to do just that. As a result, it comes down to the weighing up of economic positives for the Falklands against the environmental risks, and the balance does appear to be tipping towards the former.
The Falkland Islands has been on a journey supporting economic diversification for a very long time, of which extractive industries were included. Oil and gas, we also have onshore as well, mineral exploration. And so we are not deviating from that journey. This is just, the next stage of this journey for this particular industry.
There will be the economic benefit to the islands as a whole, and that will show itself in more resilient government services and hopefully in more employment opportunities, and in longer term there'll certainly be more development and more training opportunities, and there'll also be that economic resilience that will filter through the whole community.